I would describe DPDR as disassociation and as like a coping mechanism that your brain goes through when it experiences a lot of trauma or anxiety or stress, or even just like sensory overload or stimulation that your brain just can't kind of handle, and it goes into this state of dissociating and of not being fully conscious. The first time I experienced it was probably when I was like 12 years old. Um, and I would have like periodic episodes, I guess you could call them, of just completely dissociating, probably for like 10 seconds at a time. And it was usually when I would be like at a concert, or it would be late at night. I'd be in the backseat of the car, my parents driving, and there was a lot of bright lights against like the night sky, um, and lights like really triggered it for me. And it was just so probably around when I was like 12 years old, I started getting like little mini episodes of just dissociating and not knowing what it was. There are two kind of ways that I can describe it that I've only ever been able to describe it. One is that it feels like I'm dreaming, like like nothing is real. My surroundings feel very flat. Um, and the other way that I can describe it is that it feels like I'm in a painting, which um, like it feels like everything's flat, like nothing, like I can't touch anything. Things feel very like graphic, but also flat at the same time. To me, it feels like either I'm dreaming, like I'm not in a conscious state, or like I'm in a painting, or both. I use them interchangeably. It was more often when I was like 12, 13, 14. But now it kind of comes and goes probably every few months. And specifically during times where like I have a big life transition. So specifically, I've been getting it when I'm moving back to college after a long time of being at home, or the opposite, like going home after I've been away for a while, and it's like a big transition period. But not often, really at all anymore. For me, the episodes last probably anywhere from 10 seconds to it can go up to like 5 minutes, but it's different severity. So when it's longer, it's like I'm more aware of my surroundings and I'm less really dissociating. But when it's shorter, it's like I'm definitely dissociating. I come back and I like completely have lost track of anything that just happened. And so those more severe episodes last just for like 10 seconds, maybe up to like 30 seconds. And then the longer ones are just kind of not really feeling real, not really feeling like my surroundings are not really, like I'm not here or present. My last episode was actually pretty recently, and it came as a surprise because I haven't had it in a while. And it was probably a few weeks ago as I was coming back to college after being home for the winter break. So that transition period just for some reason gave me a lot of anxiety, and it just kind of triggered a little mini episode. Kind of, it maybe lasted like 2 minutes of just really feeling like I could tell that I was in it. So I wasn't completely dissociating, but I could tell like, oh, it came back again. I'm not things don't feel real to me right now, and so that was when it happened most recently. So after an episode ends, I feel very weird. I feel kind of like I'm floating, like usually whenever it ends, I don't know how much time has passed, which is really, it's kind of scary. Like you don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't know where I am for a moment. I have to figure out what just happened. I usually feel like kind of scared. Um, some, I've had it for so many years that now when I have it, I kind of feel like, oh, it's happening again. Or, and also, and because for me, it comes so inconsistently, I feel, um, it's, whenever it happens, it's either a surprise or I'm worried because I feel like it's coming back in some way or it's going to get really bad. a lot of times when I have an episode, I'll be like sitting with my family, or I'll be in a conversation, or two people are talking, and I'm kind of sitting there, um, and all of a sudden I'll just kind of feel like everything is kind of blurry, like I'm not here, like I'm not in the real world. So I think so during an episode, it the world feels different. But after an episode, um, I can pretty much I'm luckily I can really tell the difference between when I'm dissociating and when it's real, or like when I'm back to my conscious state. I've tried talking before about it to my family, like my parents and my sister, um, and they understand it. I talked about it more when I was in high school because that's when I was experiencing a lot of episodes, or just like almost a. There was one period where I was in like a constant state almost of feeling like things weren't real around me. Um, but then, so I've tried talking to my family about it. I have talked to therapists before, and um, not many of them know what it is. Not many of them know what it is. If they do, they think like they just say, "Oh, that's dissociating." They don't ever say DPDR. They just kind of categorize it as dissociating. And so for that, I have had some therapists give me like coping mechanisms to kind of bring myself back to reality if I feel like I'm dissociating. So, yeah, when I kind of get the sense that like a therapist that I'm talking to doesn't quite get it or even know the term, it does feel kind of illegitimizing. I don't know, it's nice to know what something is because then you can do research on it. You can find other people who deal with the same thing. So when like a professional doesn't really have a name for it or is kind of struggling to understand what you're talking about, it can be hard, and it just kind of makes you feel a little bit more alone or like something's wrong with you. Um, but yeah. So, to make myself feel better, it's difficult because it doesn't happen so often that I have like a way of coping with it. So, because it happens so inconsistently, I feel like I don't have any way of dealing with it. Um, I've been told by therapists like the common thing of like picking out like something you can touch, something you can see, something you can smell, like the going through the five senses to kind of bring yourself back to reality and out of dissociating. I've tried that, and it does help, but it's in the moment it can be difficult to like focus on doing that, and when everything feels weird around you, like doing that is sometimes difficult because it just feels kind of useless. So I would say that I really don't have any way of dealing with it. And when it comes, I kind of try, or when I have an episode, I try to, it's almost always linked with external stress or anxiety that I'm feeling. So I try to pinpoint like what is going on that's making me feel anxious, and then that's making my brain like go into this state of dissociating. I mean, definitely, even though it's difficult to find therapists who understand it, if you have access to, I mean, therapy is largely inaccessible, but if you have access to it, I think it's definitely helpful because even though for me, a lot of times DPR, it's linked to other stress or other anxiety, or things that are giving me anxiety. So maybe thinking about like what's giving you anxiety instead of like what's making me dissociate. Like I don't know, think about if there's some external things. Also, maybe if it's happening often, try and pinpoint like when it's happening. If you're in a specific place, if that's maybe bringing up memories that are triggering something. Um, and also, I've found if you can't access therapy, I found a lot of help in journaling. And so uh, it might not be the easiest thing. If you have an episode in the middle of the day, maybe you can't whip out a journal and start writing. But if you can, it's really nice to kind of document, like write down exactly what you're feeling, when it happens again, like where you are. You can notice patterns that way of when it's coming up. That's how I figured out, like, lights a lot of times trigger it, and if I'm in like a dark room with bright lights, parties, concerts, that kind of thing. I figured out through just documenting when it was happening to me that those things were triggering it. So I think if you can recognize it and just make note of it, um, then I think that helps in some way. And then also, like, try to find people who also deal with it, even though it can be difficult, because it's so helpful in knowing that you're not alone. To those struggling with DPDR, I would say hang in there, um, because it definitely ends. It definitely ends, um, and it doesn't last forever, even though it feels like it might. Um, and there's definitely ways to cope with it. Like, even for me, just kind of knowing what causes me anxiety and um, almost kind of anticipating when something is going to give me anxiety, like during transitional phases of my life where I tend to get really, really anxious. Um, I know that going into it, so I'm able to, like, I don't know, give myself more space, figure out what's going to make me feel calm in the moment during the transitional phase. And so in that way, um, it like I don't dissociate as much because I'm dealing with my anxiety first, so my brain doesn't go there. So I think if you're really struggling, um, know that, like, there are definitely ways to deal with it, to almost prevent it, and yeah.